Michael Jackson and billionaire entrepreneur Howard Hughes got in common. None of them had a will. Howard Hughes left over $1 billion when he died, and none of them had a will. So without a will, you can have lots of problems. All of those went to court. Howard Hughes's would have cost millions of dollars. Michael Jackson's still going. Peter Box, that's a different story, but yeah, they've still spent hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to sort it out. But in having a will that's done wrongly, you can have just as many problems. So I've sort of put it into 4 groups here. And the first one is probably not owned by a testator. Testator is a person who's doing a will. So basically, when you have in your will, people just think I can give everything away that I own. But that's not quite the case, because there's some things that when you die you don't own, and there's some things when you leave you don't own. So joint tenants, most people's houses, they own it together, they own it as joint tenants. What joint tenants means that if you die, your share of the house goes to the other owner. So it doesn't matter what you say in your will, that's what happens. So that's why if you're doing something in relation to your will that you want your house to go to, for example, there's quite often in second marriages they want my side of the house to go to my kids, and her side of the house to go to her kids. If it's joint tenants, it's not going to happen that way. It's all going to go to the surviving owner. The second one is family trust. So a lot of people, particularly if they're in business, they have family trust, so that they run a business through a family trust. It's got benefits to reduce taxation, to protect you in case you're sued, those sort of things. Although if you've got a family trust and you control it, you take money out and put money in or do whatever you want, you don't actually own that. It's actually owned by the trustee. So that's another lot of assets that you don't own, you can't give away by your will. So you need, if you have got something like that, you need to tell your solicitor, because there's different ways that we need to pass control on to who you want it to go to. Another thing is a company or a partnership. You don't own the actual assets in there. So I quite often have people saying, oh, I own this farm or I own this business. And then you're looking at, they don't own it, they own shares in the company, or it's owned by a partnership, so they don't particularly own it. So again, there's things that we need to do if you own assets like that are different than just a straightforward will. And the third one, or fourth one, is superannuation. I think Darren did earlier talk about superannuation. Superannuation is one of these areas that is ridiculously complicated for no apparent reason. If you do have assets in superannuation, you really need to let the solicitor know so that we can work through those issues and how you want those assets transferred. So first of all, I'll concentrate on superannuation. Superannuation is, and the Elder Law Committee of the Law Society, is something that we spend a lot of time on because, as I said, it's ridiculously complicated for no real apparent reason. If you have superannuation, it's in your name, but you don't have a say where it goes unless certain things are done. So if you died and you didn't do the appropriate finding death benefit nomination, which I'll come to shortly, your trustee is the one who decides where it's to go. They contact people who are superannuation death benefit beneficiaries, and they get information from them. Sometimes they cast the net very wide. I've had two occasions where it's taken over 18 months for superannuation to get sorted out because the person hasn't done this binding death benefit nomination. What's happening more and more is that these companies are risk adverse, so they don't want to make a decision without everyone agreeing to it, and if you can't get someone to agree to it, either because they refuse to reply, or I had one where a person was in a nursing home and they had lost capacity, so they couldn't do anything, so it takes a long time to sort out. So in the superannuation, when you join up for a superannuation fund, they give you generally a 70 or 80 page document, and that's your financial disclosure. And they say fill it out, and then they ask you to nominate a beneficiary. And people quite often come in to see me and they say, I've nominated a beneficiary, everything's fine. If you nominate a beneficiary with most superannuation funds, they ignore it completely. So there's no point in doing a nomination. You can also do what's called a non-binding death benefit nomination. And a non-binding is exactly what it says, it's non-binding, so again, they ignore that. And they don't tell you this, although somewhere in those 70 or 80 pages there's generally something that says that the only way that your assets will go where you want them to go is if you do the binding death benefit nomination on the DVD that we refer to. It's something similar to a will in that you have to nominate a beneficiary and it has to be witnessed by 2 independent witnesses who have seen you sign it. The issue is, and again, it's in these 80 pages, which most people don't read, there's only a limited amount of people that you can nominate as a beneficiary. People like brothers and sisters, uncles and aunts, generally cannot be listed, parents can't be listed as beneficiaries in certain circumstances. So you need to make sure that the people who you nominate are someone who can be a death benefit beneficiary. So that's again something that more and more I'm doing with clients now. When I sit down and do a will, I talk to them about their superannuation. We fill out a binding death benefit nomination. The kick in the tail of the binding death benefit nomination is that you've got to renew it every 3 years with most superannuation funds. And if you don't nominate it, renew it within that 3-year period, again, they ignore it. So it's something you've really got to keep on top of in the superannuation. And most, particularly my generation, it's going to be their largest asset. And you really don't have a say on where that's to go. And also, you have, say, someone like in my age died, Lisa would need money to keep on living. If it took 18 months, she would be in financial problems until that was sorted out. So if you do this binding death benefit nomination, if it's done every 3 years, then she would get it straight away and there would be no issues. The last thing you can do, and there's only a few superannuation funds who can do this, but you can have a reversionary pension. So what a reversionary pension is once you've retired and you're getting money paid from your superannuation fund, that's called a pension. And a lot of people confuse that with a Centrelink pension. But it's a pension, and a reversionary pension says that if you die, your pension will then go to this person, and generally it goes to your husband or wife. And that's one way that after you're in the pension phase, you can make sure your pension your superannuation funds go to that person. So superannuation is very critical that you get that right. There can also be challenges to a will. So these days, there are generally under three categories, and the first one is capacity, and this is something that I'm seeing more and more. That people come to me and they say, Mum or Dad, they've gone into a nursing home, they haven't got a will, I want you to go and see them and make sure they have a will. So I go up and talk to Mum or Dad, and basically one of the jobs that we have to do is that we have to talk to them and we have to assess whether we think that they have what we call testamentary capacity, or the ability to make a will. And there's a case going back to 1856 that sets out basically the parameters of what we have to look at with someone making a will. First of all, they've got to know who would be the normal person who they would leave their estate to. So whether it's their spouse or their children or someone who they've got a moral claim for some reason. Next, we need to know that they have a bit of a basic idea of what their assets are. And they don't have to say, I've got $13,143 in my Commonwealth bank account. They just need to know that, yeah, I've got a Commonwealth bank account, I own a house, or own, but they need to have an idea of what they own. Thirdly, they need to know that they're doing a will, that what the effect of a will is, that it's going to, that it's giving their assets away after they die. And fourthly, that they don't have any obvious detriment of the mind, so they don't have some obvious capacity issues. And more I'm finding people who can't satisfy those four objectives. So if that's the case, generally we can't do a will because they just don't have that capacity. Or if we do a will, it won't stand up in court because if they don't have capacity, the court will say, well, that's not a valid will because they didn't have that capacity at the time. So that's something that's becoming, with people living longer and longer, that's becoming more and more of an issue. The second one is undue influence. And what can happen is that, and I can remember when I first started, there would be a family who would come in and they would, they'd bring in mum and they'd say, Mum, do this will. And so mum would do the will and they'd take her out for lunch. And then a couple of weeks later, another side of the family would come in, Mum, we're going to go do a will, and she'd do a will and give it to them, and they'd take her out for lunch. And so mum was happy because she was getting lunch every week. But that's undue influence, and that sort of thing won't stand up if it's challenged in court either. It's got to be that the person, that's what they want. And so what my practice is, and what solicitors' practice is now, is that I will quite often, I will always, have to sit down with a person by themselves to make sure that what they're telling me is what they want. And I sometimes get people who bring in mum or dad and they say, oh, mum and dad want a will, and I say, oh, would you like to come in? And they stand up. I say, oh, sorry, I've got to see your mum or dad by themselves. And they get cranky, but it's got to be something that I've got to be certain that what they're doing, they're not influenced, because if it goes to court, it's not going to stand up. So that's something that we need to check. And the third, and probably, and definitely the most prevalent, is what we call offender provision claims. There used to be an act called the Offender Provisions Act, and that's where the name comes from. Basically, this is a claim where the testator or the person doing the will didn't provide for someone who they had a duty or a moral claim to provide for. The Offender Provision Act, or what was the Testator's Family Maintenance Act, where it started in New South Wales in about 1926, there was a newspaper proprietor, and he took quite great pleasure in getting stuck into the politicians in the day in his newspaper, and he would bag out the politicians every chance they could. Anyway, he left his wife and had a mistress. He died, and he left everything to the mistress. And so politicians are getting the last laugh. They introduced this Testator Family Maintenance Provision Act and backdated it to the day before he died. So his wife then can make a claim on his estate. So basically this is something in an area that is becoming more and more prevalent. You've probably seen people who advertise in the paper, if you've been left out of the will, come and see me, won't cost you, no fee. And it's an area that we're concerned, we're being the Law Society, are concerned that the people doing this sort of thing, because people think if they challenge a will, they won't have to pay the cost of it, which generally they don't. So it's something that quite often if you want to leave out a child, because a child, and I quite often get it these days where people they've got issues with drugs, or they just waste money, or they just haven't spoken to the family for a long time. People want to cut them out completely, and they're the people who can make a claim. And unfortunately, the people who have the strongest claim are the ones who are on the drugs, or the ones who spend all their money because they don't have anything, so they've got a great need, and that's the basis of the claim, is that if they've got a need. And the ones who have got the greatest need have the greatest claim. So it's something that we sit down and we work through certain issues and how to try and avoid that. And that's something that we do when we talk about a will. So if you are talking about, if you come in to see me about a will and you want to do something like that, just let me know, because that's where we need to go in and go into further details about that. With the family provision, there's 4 main eligible persons. And they're actually in two groups. Your spouse and your children are in the first group, and they're people have an absolute right. So if you leave them out, they don't have to prove anything to commence an action. And generally what happens in the family provision it's in the Supreme Court. It's set down for a mediation. So a mediation is where the judge says you have to sit down and you've got to try and work out your issues and try to come to a settlement. And a great majority of matters do settle at mediation. The issue is, though, is that you need to give the solicitor needs to give the amount of costs that it will take to go to this mediation. So mediation is what happens is that you prepare, the claims are prepared, a defence is filed, and then they sit down. We received one recently where the solicitor doing that says their costs are going to be $37,000, and that's for one side. So the other side of the family would have to pay. It's on average $25,000. So together on average that's $50,000, and that generally comes out of the estate. So it's something that's well worth trying to sort out. The second lot of eligible persons is the ex-spouse, this is something that people find it hard to understand, because someone who is separated and if you've been divorced, they still have a claim. So it's something you do need to look at. And also members of a household who are dependent on the testator, so they're dependent on the will writer. And this can be very, very wide range of people. I read a case only this week where someone had a friend, went to school with, the friend came on hard times, and the person had a spare house, and they said, you can live in your house until you get on your feet. And that was 13 years ago. The bloke died, and so the person who lived in the house then made a claim because said, I'm living in his house and I'm dependent on him. I should get something out of his will. And the court found that he should get something out of it. So it's a very wide range of people. Probably the one group in New South Wales that can't claim, that they can in Queensland and in Victoria, is stepchildren. So that can cause issues in its own. But they're not someone who can make a claim in New South Wales. So what generally happens then, if someone's died, say like a parent has died, the parent is living with another second spouse, not the child's mum, they make a claim now rather than when the spouse dies, because they can't make a claim when the spouse dies. So that can cause all sorts of issues as well. So I've got here when you should review your will. Basically, when you get married, your will is revoked. So as soon as you get married, whatever will you have is revoked, and the law says essentially it goes to the spouse. So you need to make sure that you've got a new will. On divorce, once you've divorced, anything that you've left to your ex-spouse is automatically removed, but quite often there can be issues in there, things to do with children, guardianship of children, and so you need to make sure that you have a look at your will when you do that. Quite often too, and I had a classic example, funny all these things, I always have plenty of examples because they happen so regularly and you just don't realise, but client came in, the father died, and the client and the brother were all pretty close. Father died, she was looking after the father. The brother said, you live in the father's house, that's all right, I don't need it. You look after him till you can do that. The brother died shortly afterwards. His will, he left to his wife, who he separated from 22 years ago. Couldn't stand her. But now she's got all his estate. So she then said to the sister-in-law, you've got to get out of the house, I want to sell it because I want my half share. And that's something that when they separated, he renewed his will, it wouldn't have happened. And so it's just a good example of when you should do something. And that's probably the third one you'll change, circumstances change with an E at the end there. It can be many things. As I've got there, a will change when you divorce, the spouse comes out, but the same thing doesn't happen if you just live with someone and you don't have, and you separate. Your will doesn't change. So that's a real good example of when you should change your will if you do separate from a de facto spouse. Things can happen, and probably combined with the second one, is that quite often I have people who come in, the fourth one, but quite often I have people come in and they're having financial difficulties or something along those lines. And there's ways that we can do to set up things to protect your assets. Things like your life insurance and your superannuation. If you're having financial difficulties, they can't be touched. But as soon as someone dies and you get the money, then they can get it. So if something like that's happening, we can set up a trust where the money's quarantined in the trust and we can protect that money. And that's really good, something that can really help the family if they are getting into financial difficulties. And your beneficiary circumstances change. Again, I quite often get it where someone left money to their kids, and then one of the child then separates shortly afterwards. If it was held as a testamentary trust, which is a trust through will, those assets are treated differently than if it was just given to the child altogether. When you separate, all your assets are put together and they call it a pool, and that pool is divided up according to various things. If it's this testamentary trust, that's not included in that pool and treated completely differently, and the results can be a lot different if the will was set up a proper way which protected those assets. Reasons, I've got here just a few reasons to review your will when you start a new business. It's a really good time to have a look at your assets, and it's something like 75% of businesses close in the first 5 years. So there's issues to do with quarantining assets so that if things don't go like you planned, that they're still available for your people that you leave behind. When you get married or start a new de facto relationship, as I said, when you're married, your will's automatically revoked, but if you start a de facto relationship, it's not. And so if you want something to go to the person you're living with, you need to make sure you review your will to make sure that's what you want. If you get divorced, I sort of touched on that. Separating from your husband and wife, we touched on that as well. Your children grow up. It's amazing how often I get people who come in and they say, I want to review your will, and they have a look at their will, and the executors of the will, they just did a will just after they got married, the executors of their parents, both who died, and it goes to the kids, but it's held in trust for them for a certain period of time, and the kids are generally in their 40s or 50s. So it's something that you need to, well, we recommend that you review your will every 5 years, just so that you can keep on top of your circumstances. I generally don't charge just to sit down and look at your will and review it if you can make sure it's all okay, just to encourage people to come in and do look at their will regularly. If your assets increase substantially, it's something that I touched on the testamentary trust earlier. Testamentary trusts can have some really good tax benefits for people. And just as a rough example, if you have a spouse and 3 young kids, if you're earning $80,000, if you do set up a testamentary trust that's done properly, they will pay no tax on $80,000. And so you can have some fairly substantial benefits in a period where they will need that money because you're not around. And so those sort of things are worth looking at, but only if you need to have a certain amount of assets to make it worthwhile, the extra cost in administering something like that. You join or leave superannuation fund, it's good to look at your will, and then also your defined death benefit nomination that we talked about earlier. You dispose of assets mentioned in the will. And again, this is an area that's really, you see a lot in the cases where mum or dad has said, I leave this house to this person and this house to this person, and the residue to someone else. They sell one house, and so that person's left out altogether because they know that they've done their will. So it's a good idea to review your will in that sort of situation and make sure that's not what happens. A beneficiary or executor dies. That's another big one where we have people who come in and their executors died, and then there's all sorts of issues because you don't have an executor. The Supreme Court at the moment are really going back to the basics, and so you sometimes need to have, it can be a lot more expensive to sort it out if you don't have, if your executors die. One of your children separated, I mentioned that before about the having the assets in a testamentary trust that get it out of that pool of assets. Or one of your children get into financial difficulties. That's one where, again, where if you put it in a testamentary trust, those assets can't be taken by your kids' creditors to pay their bills. I've got a couple at the moment where the parents have died, left money to the kids. The kids are not going to see any of that because they went bankrupt and it's all going to go to their creditors. So, what could, if it was set up as a testamentary trust to protect those assets, the kids would have got that money. Now it's gone. That's basically my presentation, but I'm open to any questions that you may have. Any questions?
So if you've got a de facto relationship,
Yes.
And the parents both die, is the de facto entitled to any money out of the estate?
Not out of the estate, no.
Right.
No. But if the estate is administered and the money goes through to the child, then they separate or something happens there, then the de facto is entitled to money out of that, yes. So it depends. Directly, they can't challenge the will, they can't get anything out of the estate, but if something happens shortly afterwards, yes, they can. Basically, in New South Wales, you need to survive, your beneficiaries have to survive by 30 days for them to get something in the estate, but once that 30 days is over, they're in entitlement, so that's an asset increase.
Is there any prevention of people contesting a will?
Yes, there is, but it's complicated, and it's that complicated that it's very rarely done. Basically, the best way to try and prevent someone from making a claim on the will is to leave them something that's not insubstantial, but not necessarily the same that you've treated the other beneficiaries. The issue is though.
That sounds like an inducible.
Well, it is. It's got to be that it's got to be enough that to encourage them not to sue. The problem is that if you die and someone makes a claim, you're only getting one side of the story because you can't tell your side of the story. We do quite often get people to write down why they've left people out or why they've left their estate the way it is. But the problem is with that, it's only a short, depending on how long it is, it's generally only short, but that the child can spin some interesting stories, I'll put it that way. And it can set, it's one side of the story, you don't get the other side. And even to sort it out just to the basic level, as I said, there's $50,000 in court costs. So it's going to cost you a bit to do that.
So if you had a private, just a personal written document or something, saying, well, you know, your so-and-so's will, just, rent or so-and-so.
Yeah, you can do that. The thing is that to be evidence in court, it's basically got to be, they say, contemporaneously done with your will. So it's got to be done at the same time as your will, so that way it can be used as a statement with your will. We generally don't put it into the will because by doing that it can inflame the situation. Yes, you can do that, and we do encourage that in that sort of situation. But what I've seen is that the person has said, well, yes, that happened, but I then approached them and they didn't say, they said go away, or they didn't want to talk to me, and so they can counteract that, but again, as I said, only giving that one side of the story. Yeah. So it's difficult, yes. And particularly with these firms that basically they can make money out of this, and $25,000 is some good money to make for them. I was actually, as part of the committee that I'm on, we were talking about this one firm in Sydney that if you want to challenge a will, you fill in the details online, they file the court documents, and the first time you see that solicitor is when you turn up to the mediation, and they charge you $25,000 for that. Yeah, and the reason why people do that is that generally the estate pays for that, so they don't have to pay it. They don't mind what the solicitor charges because they don't have to pay it. Any other questions? No?
How ethical do you think that is?
What's that, sorry?
How ethical is that instance that you just mentioned in a sense?
That's part of the reason why we've got an issue with it. Yes, it's difficult to do anything unless someone complains about it. And generally, the firms like that don't take on claims if they're not going to win it, because they have a no-win, no-fee. So they're not going to do any work if they don't win. They only take on the ones that they're going to win. And so people who have got some money out of the estate generally aren't all that unhappy because they've got something. The estate has to pay the account. The way our system is, the estate can't make a complaint because the estate wasn't represented by them. You can only complain about your own solicitor. All right, thank you.